air travel.
Air travel. Yeah.
So I just saw.
There's nothing an enormous gent like me likes better than climbing into an airplane and
What are you, like 6'4"?
6'5", and strapping into a tiny little seat and maybe getting a few of those little cookies or a bag with 8 pretzels in it.
Yeah, I know how much you enjoy that, but the reason I wanted to bring this up is because I saw a press release from the Transportation Security Administration saying that a man at the Richmond airport was found with a gun. Well,
What were they doing?
yeah, the reason that's news is because it so rarely happens. Remember, newsworthiness means it has to be kind of rare. And I guess the TSA had only like a 4% success rate in the past anyway. But yeah, a guy showed up at the TSA checkpoint with a loaded revolver in his carry-on bag, and they spotted it on the X-ray machine, shut down the security line and everything. And boy, what a perfect time to talk about traveling with your firearms.
We were at, I forget which writers' conference it was, but we were talking to some people from the outdoor space who maybe aren't gun savvy. They're either not at all involved with guns or they're only involved in the hunting end. They only use long guns. And I was talking to this fellow about, he's like, yeah, but they seize so many guns at airports. I said, okay, yes. But do you think each of those seizures was like a stopped 9/11? No. And he I said, no, those, all of those guns are dum-dums, or they were dum-dums that day.
Yeah.
Who were in a hurry and they broke one of the fundamental rules that isn't in the fundamental rules, which is know where your guns are and know their condition. Yeah. They weren't trying to like, boy, oh boy, if I can get up in the cockpit of that plane, I can get them to bring back Billy Beer or whatever.
Yeah.
These were people who forgot. Yeah. Now, it's shameful. It's embarrassing. We've had people reach out to us about it.
You're supposed to be responsible.
But everybody laughs. Not everybody. A lot of people laugh and make fun of the person when it happens. And we've published stuff about this, to which I say, keep laughing. If you haven't acknowledged exactly how that happens, you need to.
Yeah. And people we know have gone up to checkpoints with firearms or training firearms or anything that's going to trigger the bells and whistles. I made it from Milwaukee all the way to New Haven, Connecticut with a K-bar knife in my backpack. Nobody said a word to me until I got to the place where I was going.
Are we talking like a folding pocket knife or a K-bar?
A K-bar, a Marine Corps K-bar knife in my backpack. Nobody said a word to me. And then I also showed up accidentally at the Appleton airport with 50 rounds of .357 SIG in my backpack. And oh man, I didn't want to walk back out here. So I ended up losing my 50 rounds of .357 SIG. So yeah, it can happen and people do make mistakes. The TSA makes mistakes. How in the world did I get this K-bar knife all the way to Connecticut?
Shouldn't you be able to bank those? Like, look, okay, I forgot that my gun was in here, but I snuck a full-size K-bar through 3 times, so can we have...
Through 3 different airports.
Hash these out.
And we understand that. We also understand how completely convoluted and uninformed the rules are, the convoluted rules and uninformed gate agents and others when we travel with firearms. I have traveled extensively with firearms and never had the same experience twice. When I get to the gate when I get to the check-in stage and I want to say, yes, I am declaring my firearm. Now what's going to happen? Never have I ever had the same experience twice.
Correct.
Traveling with a firearm. I've even gone so far as to carry a printed version of the TSA rules, to which the gate agent was like, I don't want to hear those. This is what we're going to do today. Okay, so in general, unload your firearm, make sure it's locked in a hard case of some nature. I have traveled with firearms locked in a plastic ammo box. Mm-hmm. It was a lockable plastic hard case. They allowed it to go through. I have traveled with firearms that had their magazines loaded, but the magazines were removed from the gun. I have been told to unload the rounds from the magazine and put them only in the original ammunition box, which is a cardboard carton, or place them in a plastic ammunition carton. I'm kind of at wit's end on what to do. I'm just kind of waiting to see what happens next time I get to the airport with my guns.
It's especially frustrating because just like when somebody sells like a pocket multi-tool, like, hey, and it's TSA approved. Mm-hmm. When you get up to the front of the line, TSA approved exclusively means what the specific TSA officer you're dealing with will let through.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how many people told you, I know I took that through security all the time, and my brother's a cop, and he said it's fine. Doesn't matter. It's whatever that person wants to do that moment of that day. And like you, I've never flown with a gun and had it happen the same way twice.
Yeah.
I've had, you have to empty out those mags. I have to go get a deputy sheriff. I've been backroomed. I've had the person just look at it and then nod and say, lock it up. The one that I see people mess up the most, short of things like showing up at the front of the line with the gun still in their holster or something like that. The one that people mess up is they want to be so safe. They do everything they can to be as safe as possible. They put a snap cap in it.
Right.
In the chamber, or they put 5 or 6 snap caps in their revolver. Nobody at the airport, except for maybe some of the cops, are going to know what those are. Leave the snap caps at home. Do not complicate this in any way.
Yeah. And
empty gun. Some people take the gun apart. If it's an auto, just take the slide off. I don't do that. Yeah. But I understand why some people do that, because you're probably going to be dealing with somebody who, other than the cops, they have never been in the same room as a gun that they could see. Yeah. They've been in a room with people with guns. They just couldn't see it.
Yeah. But to go to the TSA website and you can find out traveling with a gun right there, and it says, in a locked case, unloaded ammunition separate, from the firearm in there, and then go to the counter at the airline and it will be different. They will tell you something different. Like you said, sometimes they have cops show up, sometimes not. The single strangest interaction I've ever had with firearms was taking my gun into New York, and I travel on the HR 218. I have my retired police officer card with me. Taking my gun into New York City. I arrived in New York, picked up my bag. Well, I left from Milwaukee, checked my gun, went smoothly. Arrived in New York, picked up my bag. Spent 4 days wandering around the streets of New York City carrying my gun. Everything was fine. Nobody asked me any questions. I went back to LaGuardia to get on the plane to fly back to Milwaukee, and I declared that I had a firearm with me. 4 police officers from the Port Authority Police Department showed up to take a picture of my gun, copy down the serial number, take a picture of my driver's license, take a picture of my police ID, and then escort me with the gun to the back room where they put it someplace and sent me on my way. And I asked them, I said, why was it so important for you to know what I was doing as I was leaving? Nobody checked me in your city when I got here with my gun. I grabbed my bag off the carousel. I jumped in the Uber and went to my hotel and was living my life carrying my gun. It was just bizarre.
What'd they say?
Nothing. They were just like, whoa, this is the only time we knew you had a gun.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It was absolutely crazy.